It's official. It's all over. It's total victory. The day of days for America and her allies.
Peace, it's wonderful.
The war is over. The entire world begins to breathe and live again.
The Allies won this war in the cause of freedom and the ideals of anti-fascism, the ideals of democracy.
One of the first challenges is to determine how Germany will fit into the post-war world.
The American view is just like the Soviet one at the beginning, in the sense that we've got to divide Germany. We've got to make sure that it can never rise up again. That's the first urgent thing.
The Allies split Germany into 4 occupation zones. The British, Americans, and French will govern Western Germany. The Soviets will govern the East. Berlin, deep within the Soviet zone, is divided between all 4 nations. The wartime Allies have very different plans for the new Germany.
What Stalin is doing is taking as much of the wealth, as much of the factories, as much of the productive capacity and stockpiles from occupied Germany back to the Soviet Union. Stalin would say he was only taking what the Germans owed him for the horrible suffering during the war. Conversely, the Western Allies want Germany rehabilitated.
The Western idea is not to devastate Germany economically through reparations, but bring them into global markets, connect Germany to the world, and through that, you'll get German people who are incentivized to do things that are constructive instead of destructive.
Marshall aid is an essential component in the American post-war recovery plan for Europe. But its success widens the increasing divide, economically and politically, between East and West.
We are now in a bipolar world.
Америка вышла из войны обогащенной. Хотели видеть нас ослабленными на долгие годы и диктовать нам свою волю.
It's a world of rivalry like the world had never seen.
The Soviet Union has proved again and again that it cannot be trusted.
And it's a race. It's a competition for preeminence, and it's ultimately going to be a competition for security.
And Berlin, the former capital of the Third Reich, is at the center of the conflict. In the summer of 1948, billions of Marshall aid dollars flow into the countries of Western Europe.
Europe is slowly but surely edging back towards economic health. Careful planning for the use of the $324 million allotted has helped Western Germany temporarily to its feet.
Great Britain and the United States merge their German occupation zones. The French will soon join them. A common currency is introduced, the Deutschmark. Stalin understands that the Western powers intend to establish a strong and independent West Germany.
Now imagine for someone as paranoid as Stalin having these Western militaries going back and forth between Berlin and the Western occupation zones. This is a source of instability, disruption, it's dangerous.
Stalin wants to sever direct contact between Berlin and the western half of Germany.
He doesn't want to invade West Berlin because that's an act of war, but what he believes he can do is he can blockade Berlin.
At this time, Berlin is still a pile of rubble. It has very little tactical significance for the United States government.
So it really made no sense to keep West Berlin, and Stalin believed that in the end the West would blink and withdraw.
On June 24th, the Soviets cut all road, rail, and water routes linking West Berlin to Western Germany.
Suddenly, the trains stopped. Traffic between Berlin and the Western zones was banned.
The British and Americans asked, what can we do short of war? And the answer is, they can keep Berlin supplied, not by road, not by rail, not by canal, but by air.
The British and the Americans construct an air bridge into West Berlin.
The plan is to deliver on aeroplanes everything that a modern city needs to survive. Food, you've got coal, you've got fuel, you've got medical supplies. It's a superb example of an operation that's pulled together very quickly. Huge numbers of aircraft, planes flying around the clock. These British and American officers, the same officers that have organized the triumphs of logistics that you see during the Second World War.
The pressure on Truman at this point is incalculable. He knows that this move could be provocative enough to start World War III.
But the Americans are hoping that this strong show of resolve will encourage Stalin to back off. They are gambling that Stalin does not want World War III.
After nearly a year of daily international tension, Stalin halts the blockade. All routes that connect Berlin to the west are reopened. Restrictions within Berlin between the Soviet zone and American, British, and French zones are lifted as well.
Stalin set up a challenge for the West. He was probing the West. He needed to know how far he could go. But in fact, Truman rose to the challenge. And in the end, it was Stalin who blinked.
But the world is about to cross a threshold from which there is no return. In an appropriately desolate landscape, the Soviet Union prepares to test its first atomic bomb.
Lavrenti Beria, Stalin's kind of mega manager, arrives to supervise in a little hut in the middle of nowhere. He's incredibly nervous. If it doesn't work, his downfall is quite likely. He watches from a safe distance.
The test is a success.
Stalin's overjoyed and relieved. Now he's got an equal footing with the West, and they cannot push him around anymore.
After this period when Stalin's struggling to catch up with America, he's back in the game.
Truman's a poker player, and for these years after the war, he always had an ace in the hole. He had the bomb, the Soviets didn't. That surety was gone. There was no turning back.
And you've got two superpowers, two nuclear powers that are facing each other across the world, and all of a sudden the world is much less stable.
An 18th or 19th century scholar would say, oh, you're going to have a war between those two powers. It's inevitable, right? Because they're the two great superpowers. But the atomic weapons change things. If the Soviets and the United States can't compete in a military sense directly because it's too dangerous, well, then you compete indirectly.
World War II began in a universe that would have been recognizable 50 years before. It ends in a world that wouldn't have been recognizable to anyone because of the splitting of the atom. The moral and philosophical underpinnings that enabled the Allies to triumph in World War II, an appreciation for the individual, support for the dignity of all peoples, a bias for democracy, have, for almost a century now, enabled us to live and thrive in a world where Armageddon is always at hand. But it hasn't come, not least because we've done the right thing.